Contrast. The sanctity of her profession juxtaposed against the brutality of her fate. The tools of her trade, now symbols of a life interrupted. It began like any other day. The young doctor, fueled by purpose, entered the seminar room to prepare for an upcoming presentation. The clock ticked past its usual rhythm, and soon her absence became a whisper in the hospital corridors. Her colleagues, accustomed to her punctuality, felt a knot of worry tighten in their chests. Where could she be? Hours crawled by, each tick of the clock amplifying their fears. The initial unease morphed into a chilling dread. A search began, frantic calls made, her name echoing through the hospital's public address system. Hope, fragile and fading, clung to every unanswered ring. The hospital, a place of healing, became a labyrinth of anxiety and despair. As dusk surrendered to the darkness of night, a sense of foreboding settled over the hospital. The search party, their faces etched with worry, stumbled upon a sight that sent a collective gasp through the corridors. Behind the closed doors of the seminar room, a tragedy had unfolded. Her lifeless body lay sprawled on the floor, a stark contrast to the vibrant life she had led. The discovery sent shockwaves through the hospital, the brutal reality piercing the veil of disbelief. The news spread like wildfire, engulfing the hospital in a blanket of grief and fear. The once serene environment was now a hub of chaos and confusion, with news vans and reporters swarming the entrance, eager for any morsel of information. The corridors, usually bustling with activity, were eerily silent, the air thick with unspoken questions. The dim lighting cast long shadows, adding to the sense of unease that permeated every corner of the building. Who could have committed such a heinous act? The investigators, deep in thought, pondered over the evidence, trying to piece together the puzzle that seemed to grow more complex with each passing moment. The police descended upon the scene, their faces grim, their every move scrutinized by anxious eyes. The hospital entrance was now a maze of police tape, a stark reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded. The seminar room, now a crime scene, was cordoned off, every inch meticulously examined for clues. The once lively room, filled with discussions and learning, was now a silent witness to a horrific act. The investigation was a tangled web of speculation and suspicion. Detectives pored over files and documents, their desks cluttered with notes and photographs, each piece of evidence a potential key to unlocking the mystery. Interrogations began, whispers of potential motives circulating among the staff. The tension in the air was palpable, each question a probe into the hidden corners of their lives. Had she stumbled upon something she shouldn't have? The staff, now under a cloud of suspicion, looked over their shoulders, their every move tinged with anxiety and fear. Was this a random act of violence, or a carefully planned murder? The deliberate placement of objects at the crime scene suggested a sinister intent, a calculated move by a cold and methodical mind. Every unanswered question deepened the mystery, casting long shadows of doubt. The detectives, faced with a growing list of unsolved cases, felt the weight of the community's expectations on their shoulders. The investigation was not just about finding a killer, it was about restoring a sense of security that had been brutally shattered. New security measures were implemented, but the sense of vulnerability lingered. Days turned into weeks, the pressure mounting with each passing hour. The detectives worked tirelessly, their nights blending into days, driven by the need to bring closure to a grieving community. The police, tight-lipped and determined, followed every lead, every whisper, every fleeting shadow. Each new piece of information was a potential breakthrough, a step closer to unraveling the truth. The hospital, once a sanctuary of healing, was now trapped in a macabre waiting game. The once bustling reception area was now deserted, the few lights casting a gloomy pall over the building. The victim's colleagues, haunted by the tragedy, grappled with their own fears and suspicions. The break room, once a place of camaraderie, was now filled with somber faces and hushed conversations. The investigation, painstakingly slow, offered little solace, leaving the community in limbo, desperate for answers and justice. Vigils were held, memorials created, but the sense of loss and uncertainty remained, a heavy burden on the hearts of all involved. The investigation took a dramatic turn with the emergence of a suspect, a fellow doctor, a colleague who had shared the same corridors, the same aspirations. This revelation was not just shocking, but deeply unsettling for everyone who worked alongside him. The corridors that once echoed with the sounds of healing now felt tainted with whispers of betrayal. The news sent shockwaves through the medical community, casting a pall of suspicion over those who had pledged to heal. Conversations in break rooms turned from patient care to speculation and fear. Trust, the very foundation of their profession, seemed to be crumbling. The suspect, once a familiar face in the hospital hallways, was now at the center of a storm, his life dissected, his motives questioned. Colleagues who once greeted him warmly now looked at him with a mix of pity and suspicion. His every action, every word, was scrutinized under the harsh light of doubt. The evidence, circumstantial but compelling, pointed towards a chilling possibility. Had the sanctity of the medical profession been violated by one of its own? The thought was almost too much to bear. The hospital, a place of healing, was now a potential crime scene. The accusations were met with a mix of disbelief and anger. How could someone they had worked with, someone they had trusted, be capable of such a betrayal? The discussions were heated, emotions running high as everyone tried to make sense of the situation. How could someone who had dedicated their life to saving others be capable of such a horrific act? The question lingered in the air, unanswered. It was a paradox that seemed impossible to resolve. The suspect's past actions, his dedication, and his apparent compassion were now all under scrutiny. The case became a media frenzy, the hospital's reputation hanging precariously in the balance. Reporters camped outside, eager for any new development, while the hospital staff tried to go about their duties under the relentless gaze of the cameras. The accused maintained his innocence, his pleas echoing in the courtroom, but the shadow of doubt refused to dissipate. His defense team worked tirelessly, but the court of public opinion had already passed its judgment. The trial, a media spectacle, brought the city to a standstill. People gathered outside the courthouse, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Inside, the tension was palpable. Every word, every gesture, analyzed and reported. The prosecution presented its case, weaving a narrative of jealousy, ambition, and betrayal. They painted a picture of a man driven by dark motives, stark contrast to the healer everyone thought they knew. The defense fought back, highlighting inconsistencies and emphasizing the presumption of innocence. They argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that the real culprit was still out there. Their passionate pleas aimed to sow seeds of doubt in the minds of the jurors. The courtroom became a battleground of narratives. The jury left to decipher truth from speculation. Each side presented compelling arguments, leaving the jurors with the heavy burden of determining the fate of the accused. The verdict, when it finally came, would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the accused, but for the medical community as a whole. It would either restore faith in the system or deepen the wounds of distrust. The entire community held its breath, waiting for the judgment that would shape their future.